And already stubbornly high inflation in the US has risen even faster than expected, fueled by higher costs for petrol and housing. Prices rose 3.5% in the 12 months to March, up from 3.2% in the previous month. I was talking about this with our business reporter yesterday, who said that it was 3.4% was the expectation. So Ed Boyd might be surprised that this has gone higher. Well, Joe Biden was asked about this earlier today and what it means for rate cuts.
I do stand by my prediction that before the year is out, there'll be a rate cut. This may delay it a month or so. I'm not sure of that. We don't know what the Fed is going to do for certain. But look, we have dramatically reduced inflation from 9% down to close to 3%.
Okay, let's get some Aussie reaction to this now. Let's bring in Chief Investment Officer at the Motley Fool, Scott Phillips. Scott, we do tend to follow the United States, so is this going to push us even further back?
Probably, Pete. Yeah, look, when the president's giving predictions on interest rates, you know it must be an election year. I don't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know what's going to happen either. But the reality is that if inflation ticks up in the US as it has, it just pushes things further away. It must do by definition. Either that or the Fed are going to play a dangerous game and try and cut rates regardless and hope that everything else remains on track. The RBA here has been pretty clear. Now, they did drop that whatever it takes language last time we met. Maybe I should say. So that changes things a little tiny bit. The reality is they're not going to have much choice, mate. If rates go up, they're going to have to do something. If inflation goes up, they're going to have to do something on rates. It won't be an increase, but it will probably, almost certainly, delay the cuts that are going to come. Joe Biden's right, they'll come eventually. More Australian economists, by the way, saying 2025 is when we should expect them. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah, look, I had thought a couple of months ago, Scott, that we might be looking at one or two cuts this year, but given the runaway train that is housing prices at the moment, and then you've got this lead from the States, I reckon we'd be lucky to see a cut this year now.
I think that's probably right, mate. The simple reality, look, I mean, anything can change, right? It's a long time. Maybe the Yanks have their inflation go up. Maybe ours comes down. We may, for different reasons, have different experiences. The world is so globalized right now. We know America went up before us. They started coming down before us. We followed, not slavishly, but just because that's the reality of a globalized world. Very, very ambitious to believe inflation won't come under some serious pressure here at home.
Okay. Now, let's get to this story Cam Redden just brought to us a short time ago. The Prime Minister is going to announce the Future Made in Australia Act today, which will detail new and existing projects to drive investment. So what do you make of it? You like it so far, Scott?
No, not at all. I've been a bit direct on Twitter this morning on this one. Look, here's the thing. It may well just be political cover. And if that's the case, then frankly, that's probably the best we can hope for. We know tariffs and subsidies are terrible things. Bob Hawke knew it. Paul Keating knew it. Labor was, frankly, in government when they dismantled most of the tariffs and subsidies, protecting, in air quotes, Australian industry. It doesn't work. It's not good for us. It's not good for consumers. It's not good for business. It's good for those businesses who get some cash, probably. But it just doesn't work. Now, there is a role for government to be a seed capital player in some new industries that otherwise wouldn't get to scale otherwise, but that's the key. They've got to be able to get to scale. Those businesses that we think we're going to support either need to compete on the world stage or not. Here's the thing. If you add tariffs to something, you make Australians pay more. If you add subsidies, you make Australian taxpayers pay more. Competition works beautifully. The comparative advantage and free trade, or at least freer trade, is good for everybody. And yes, individual jobs, individual companies may not work. Yes, China dumps solar panels around the world. Trying to compete with that is frankly madness. So, mate, ideology and politics aside, purely economically, this is a bad idea unless the money is being very cleverly invested in those things that will be able to stand on their own 2 feet after the government seed capital is deployed. Okay,
James Patterson from the Coalition coming up shortly on that too. Scott, good to see you. As always, we'll talk to you soon.